Welcome to the Not All of a Night podcast. My name is Romy Moreno, and today we have Roger Moreno, my ex-husband and baby daddy. And we also have Camilo Rafael Sierra, who will be interviewing us and asking us questions on healthy co-parenting and divorce. Welcome, guys.
Pleasure. Yeah. Good to have you guys.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So Roger and I have a really good relationship, and a lot of people admire us for the way that we co-parent and the way that we get along. So I felt it was really important for us to do an episode about this because it's important for your kids.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I really thank you for the opportunity to do this. Our last episode that we did was awesome. And this topic in particular is something that for me personally has been a challenge at times in my life. But I've also had times where it's been like very rewarding and like very amazing, a thing to do. Raising kids, I was always told like you never really grow up until you have kids, like and I also heard this other really cool saying that, as a kid, we don't realize that as kids, our parents were growing up still.
Yeah, that's what we are doing. We're still growing up.
And so they were growing up at the same time, as having to raise us, and everybody has a really, really wide range of experiences. But I feel that like the topic of parenting and raising children is really important because there's a lot of people that a lot of the things that they struggle with in life stem from, their upbringing, the way that their parents raised them, or the lack of, parents, or any wide range of things that people can have. So I think doing this is a really good topic. There's a lot of young parents. There's a lot of parents that are part of like marginalized communities and that don't have a lot of the resources that our parents had growing up. So yeah, I'm excited to talk to you guys about how you work the magic of, making humans.
Oh, we don't have to talk about making them. Yeah. We all know we already know how
we're raising them.
Yeah, that's science.
But it's crazy because like how you were saying that we're growing up, as we're raising kids. If you really think about it, you think back like, damn, so our parents that we thought were so fucking grown are like who we are now. Like, that's insane. Yeah. It's insane.
Totally. What has been the most rewarding thing for you when it comes to being a parent?
For me, it's been pretty much like experiencing childhood in a healthy way, right? Because my childhood I had good moments, but, it was very traumatic and a lot of things went down, and just, it's kind of like tapping into that inner child again with my kids, like having those great experiences with them in such a healthy way. Also seeing them win and receiving that love. Growing up, I wasn't really raised in a very affectionate household. I never really received affection. So receiving it from my kids, it's very rewarding for me. That it's just this unconditional love that they give me, that it's the best thing ever.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, definitely for me, I would say just reliving my childhood again through them. I mean, everything that I wanted to do and all the experiences that I wanted when I was a kid that I never, was able to have. Now I get to share them with my kids. I get to see them. And it's a little bit different for me as well because I'm raising two boys, and I'm actually seeing myself, like literally seeing myself. Whenever I see them, I can't help but say like that's me completely, because again, they're boys, and every time I see their mannerisms or something they do, I'm like, wow, I do that. Like, so it's just a little bit different. It hits a little bit different when you're dealing with two boys, and they both look a lot like you and they act like you, and every time they say something, that was like, yeah, that's something that I would say. So just seeing that is like very rewarding and very gratifying for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that I have a daughter, she's 15, and just seeing her grow and being into the things that I'm into, and just actually tonight she has a show she's playing the bass in a summer camp band. It's an all-girl band. And she's
That's
playing the bass in
awesome.
it. So like stuff like that, like I'm gonna go see her, and like those things really are rewarding for me, you know, to see like, wow, like that's my kid for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
You know,
Like,
you know?
yeah, when they do certain things that you're like, you're definitely my son. You're
Yeah.
definitely my kid. Like 100%. Like Zachary, his sense of humor is a lot like mine.
Yeah.
Like a lot like mine. Like we laugh at the same things and we get like each other's jokes. So that part is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and another thing for me, definitely seeing him interact with my family, like having those experiences with like my mom, you know, knowing that they're not going to obviously be around for, you know, forever. Just that's very gratifying to see that, you know, my parents are able to enjoy the kids and vice versa. Because, you know, when I was growing up, I used to always be with my grandmother. It was a huge part of my life. Nothing but positivity, and like that's a strong memory that, and I'm glad that they're able to have that as well. So seeing them interact with my family is definitely gratifying for sure. So
Yeah, I can relate with that because my mom always, you know, she would always encourage me to call your grandfather, call your grandmother, and you know, and be in touch, you know, with all the extended family. You know, us Latinos have like huge families sometimes, and it's like, you know, so many tias and tios and cousins and everywhere, like, and so, you know, my daughter has a very huge family. Her mom's side of the family is super big, and so seeing her as she's technically, I think, the oldest grandchild of her grandparents. And so she had that like big sister vibe, like right away, you know, and then her mom has two other kids with her husband, and they're her pride and joy. You know what I mean? Like she takes care of them like if it was like, you know, like her kids, you know? And I can see her now getting a little older and more independent. But yeah, that family connection, I think when you have kids, that widens kind of like your family connections, because now, you know, so many people, you know, joke about how like moms ask their daughters like, so when you have kids, or their sons like, so when are you gonna have kids, so when you have kids, you know what I mean? Like they always bug them about when they're having kids. And so when they're finally there, it's a good chance, you know, to be in that family environment, you know, and kind of relive those moments and heal any traumas that we might have had, because you're addressing them in a new way, like in a positive way, you know? So that's definitely great. What's the most difficult thing about having kids that you guys have experienced so far?
Having kids.
Yeah.
for me, the most difficult part is just not being able to control everything they do. It's because now they're experiencing life through their own little, you know, experiences as well, and not being able to control or manipulate those. Like, because you always want to be there, you always want to have the answer with them, but at the end of the day, you need them to have those experiences. You want them to, you know, get dumped by a girl. You want them to get fired. You want them to, you know, experience all the lows, so they can, you know, appreciate all those positivity, you know, all those, you know, uplifting parts of what being a human being is all about. So for me, for sure, is just not being able to like, I would love to be with them 24/7, protect them, you know, and make sure that everything goes well. But at the same token, that's not a real life. That's not a real way of living as well. So that's definitely been the hardest part for me, is just not like being there to just like control every aspect of, you know, of all their decisions or whatnot. But at the same time, I do understand that like, that's not going to be, you know, a reality as well. They need to experience, you know, good, bad, all those, you know, ups and downs as well, so they can really figure out what type of person they're going to be when they're growing up. So yeah, for me, it's just not being able to, you know, be around them 24/7 and, you know, control everything they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me it's, you know, missing out on some important moments because, you know, maybe they'll be with Roger and not with me, or they experience something and it's just, those parts are hard because you want to be part of every big moment, right? Like even the holidays, like we're still figuring it out. The first year that we were separated, we actually did intentionally spend Christmas morning together, which Roger and I were married for 10 years. So that tradition of, you know, waking up Christmas morning, I'm making like Christmas brunch, and then everybody's like, so that was something that was so instilled in us, right? That we still did it that year, but then the following year we did it differently. And that was not waking up with them Christmas morning, even though I'm going to see them later, was difficult, you know? So things like that, and just I'm not at a stage now where, I'm missing first steps and words and stuff, but that could be something that could be very difficult for some parents as well. So that part is really hard for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate with that big time. Because for me, my situation, there was a time when I stopped being with my daughter's mom. And so it became that tug of war, kind of like, that difficulty of like, oh, okay, so now we have to set the schedule, to accommodate like both of us. And there was times where we really didn't want to communicate, but we had to, and that feeling of like, being at odds about now I see them as the small, things that it was just us being new, to it. But as the years went by, it got easier. And there was moments where we just had to kind of just really hit the adult button, like full on, and say, hey, well, this is not about us. This is about our kid. Let's figure it out. And so, yeah, those difficulties for me, they got better, but I can imagine just how many people out there struggle with that, struggle with co-parenting, right? And so I guess my next question is if you guys can talk a little bit about how you guys navigate. It's so important, right, for kids to have like both their parents, and for their parents, even if they're not together, to be able to co-parent in a way that makes it easy for the kids and makes it seamless. Talk a little bit about how you guys maneuver that since being together for, being married for so long and then not being, but still keeping, I guess that friendship or that connection. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, like you had mentioned that you and your ex had like that moment that like, we're going to stop being adults and do what's in the best interests of your kid.
Right.
Roger and I, that was always our intention from the start. Even when we initially first separated, like we were like, these kids come first, whatever, like drop our egos. Not that it was 100% easy. Like we had like our moments, but then like once we like figured it out and focused on ourselves and, to give the care to ourselves that we needed, we're like, these kids come first. Now, the most important thing that I feel that Roger and I do is that before we talk to our kids about anything, we talk to each other, so we're both on the same page on like, what is the message that we want to set? Right. What do we want? And if we disagree on something, we could come to an understanding of how we're going to communicate this to our kid. Right. There's not like, my kid is never going to find something out before Roger does, and vice versa. Right. Another thing is that we work so well together that even though we're like, I say kids, but Ian is still so young. He's only 4. And Zach is the one that's 12 years old. Like he knows that no matter who he goes to, like you're going to get like the same response because we're a team. Right. Yeah. So even though we're not together in a relationship or together in the same household, like he knows that Roger and I are like side by side.
Yeah.
So that's been very important.
That's super interesting and amazing too. But it's super interesting to me because that dynamic is super hard to find, like even with couples that are together like married, there's always like one, the mom is either the yes or the no, and the dad vice versa, you know what I mean? Like they know they can go, or even the grandparents, sometimes they, grandma,
grandparents a whole other,
it's all bets are off with the grandparents, right? Like they get spoiled to the max. But yeah, that's super cool how you guys, came to that realization early on and stuck with that, because it's just so important. I think that people that have kids, sometimes in their world, it's still their movie. It's still their, like, it's my life and whatever, you know what I mean? And it's so ego driven, and they put themselves and the connection or lack of connection first with the other person. And so I think that affects kids a lot. A bunch of the, the issues that people have, like I was saying earlier, stems from your childhood, and from how you view your parents, and how you interact with them, and how you feel about your parents is a huge part of like what makes us, And so I think that's super cool that you guys are able to do that.
In my opinion, with this whole thing, the situation, I think me and Romy can definitely agree on this, is that we've grown up and we've experienced failed relationships. We've seen it firsthand from both of our parents, from our relatives. So we have experiences that we can always fall back on and try our hardest our best, do everything we can to
not go that route. Yeah.
Exactly. We have, with our own siblings, just seeing, how their relationships with, their exes as well, and like how to navigate through it or whatnot, and what worked and what didn't, and all those experiences. Because when somebody in your family is going through something like that, you're experiencing it as well from afar. Your mom's always calling you and letting you know what's going on. You're seeing it through, through your nieces and nephews. So going through all that, seeing family, have negative experiences and go through all that drama or whatnot, I think, as sad as it sounds to say, but I'm glad to have those experiences, because I was able to see firsthand what to do and what not to do.
Right.
And all that affects, all the kids, obviously. We're going to have 2 Christmases. We're going to have 2 birthdays. Your mom's this, your dad's this, all these negative things. And it sticks with you. Yeah. It'll always stick with you. I remember, growing up, I lived through my parents' relationship, all the negativity, all the back and forth yelling and all that, just in front of us. That's another thing that, another thing to talk about is like, actually, downing each other in front of your kids, arguing in front of your kids, whatever that may be, that definitely is just, it sticks with you. I mean, and that's definitely something that you just can't, unhear or unsee certain things. So
right.
I think with us experiencing all those, having gone through all that, it is definitely, it helps us going forward. And that's definitely a huge part of, the reason why I am the way I am, is because, experiencing all that stuff that, family members have gone through as well, and learning through, their mishaps.
Yeah.
And like Roger mentioned, like downing each other and all of that, we actually do the opposite. Like I talk great about Roger and Roger talks great about me, and Roger, like, I have a 12-year-old that gets lazy and stuff like that. And Roger's always like, you have to help your mom. You have to do this, And the same way, like I tell Zach, I'm like, your dad is like a great role model. He's a great dad. Instead of like, being like, oh, your dad is frustrating me, or like, oh, your dad is always late. Not that you're always late. You're actually early. But, I'm just saying, like, those are just examples of like what could
keeping
be said.
Positive.
Because that makes the kid feel like I felt it growing up. Like, my parents never fought in front of me, and they never talked shit about each other to me. But there was that tension that I just knew that there was like something there, And then that makes the kid feels like you have to choose sides, or then you feel guilty. And like, if you, for example, like your dad is like having fun about something, like you feel guilty, like telling your mom, and it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
Like, it shouldn't be like that at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, keeping that openness and also because kids learn everything that we do, right? Like they're mini us anyway, like you could send them off to somewhere far at birth and they would still be probably exactly like you,
Yeah.
But even more so, them seeing and experiencing everything that we say and do to each other, that molds them in a way, and that makes them kind of who they are. And so that's really important. So yeah, I remember like at times growing up, like my mom saying like little slick things here and there that I would pick up on, and I would just be like, yeah, it was never like anything blatant or anything like, but she would like make little jokes and like little references and stuff like that. And I resented it. Like I remember thinking like, you don't really know him, and and that's not really, what it is. But as a kid, you don't feel that you can really say much. Sometimes like there's tons of different types of kids, right? Some of them are more outspoken. They'll say when they're feeling something, bad or whatever, or something that they don't like. But as a kid, for the most part, I think kids know that they can't really challenge us on,
and I feel like it builds,
really can't say. So
it builds like a sense of like not being able to be completely open or honest with a certain parent because they don't want to mess up or say the wrong thing or make somebody feel bad or something like that. And that's the last thing that we want to do to like our kids. The last thing.
Yeah.
So
that brings an interesting question to mind, because I've dealt with recently things where it's a serious topic that you have to speak to your kid about, but you don't know the way or the right time or how or what you should say. I had my grandfather pass away in last January, and I didn't know how to talk to my daughter. Really, I just I figured, well, I'll just let her tell me things and I'll pick up on them, and then when she's ready, I'll talk to her. How do you guys? I know age kind of plays a role in that,
Yeah,
but
it
since you
does.
guys have you have two sons that are, one's very young and one's already almost a teenager. How do you maneuver that thing when it comes to serious topics like that you might think that, are they ready to talk about this yet or not? What do you guys think about that?
Well, we've had two incidents where we had to have serious conversation. It's mostly with the older one because the little one's too
Right.
young to understand. And the first one being, when my dad committed suicide, my son was very attached to my dad, so very close to him. And I had to tell him because I'm like crying. I'm going through a hard time. If he's going to be like, what the hell's wrong with you? Right. So I just, obviously I spoke to Roger first and I let him know, like, I did not want to tell him how he died. Right. This was 2 years ago. So he was like 10 years old. I feel like that was too young for him to really fathom what that was. After I talked to Roger, I let him know that his grandfather is no longer with us and stuff like that. Luckily, he was just so overwhelmed with sadness that he didn't ask me, like, how did he die? So I never told him until like recently when he was older, right? Because I feel that was too much for a 10-year-old to process.
Right.
I mean, yeah, for me, I really haven't had any, dramatic experiences or anything I have to deal with him on one-on-one like that. But for me, I try to use the opportunities in the morning, as crazy as it sounds, on our way to school, to just ask him questions and just try to get feedback from him. So that's our little time, those 10, 15 minutes before school.
Right.
To just, talk about anything. So, as far as anything going on in the world, anything going on in his life, any questions he may ask. Sometimes he's not very open, like, he's kind of a shy kid in some sense, but I try to use that opportunity in the mornings, like before we go to school, to just ask questions, just to try to hear him out. Luckily, I haven't had to really have any, deep emotional talks with him at this time.
It's had to be me.
I know I'm going to be he's a boy and he's coming into his own soon. And I'm sure once he starts getting into, more girls and, high school, he's still not there yet, but I can definitely see it, coming up soon. So
that's on you, Rob.
I'm not looking forward to that, but it should be fine. I mean, I never had that talk. Unfortunately, you learn a lot from the people you're with and your environment or whatnot. But yeah, I'm not looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah. No, I think most importantly, I think we should always be open with our kids and let them know that we're here for them.
And it's like a safe space, they can come with anything. Yeah.
Right. As as weird or as off, I think building that type of communication with our kids is really important. I think I tend to think that kids overall are very smart, man. Like they're super, like they know.
They do. They know a lot.
They know a lot more than what we like give them credit for.
I want to give them credit, obviously, but they had something that we did not have, and they have phones.
Right.
Any questions they have, it's just easier to just ask the phone. So trust me, they have a million questions, the same we did when we were growing up, but now they have the answer at their fingertips.
Right.
It's not something that we had to deal with. We had to, ask Craig in the corner, or older brother, friend. Yeah. Through a magazine, like. Not anymore. You just Google any question you have, and 50 explanations will show up. Right. So it's a different time, So we can't expect them to like always approach us with questions, especially now with social media and everything. They just they're getting fed information all day.
Even though like our son doesn't have any like social media. The only thing he had, it was like ran by me. So it's not like he has these outlets, right? But he's a gamer and he's in his stuff. But I did have to have I bought him a gaming computer for Christmas. So then I had to go and had that serious conversation about him, about pedophiles and like, you
The
know,
internet,
like the
right.
internet and like sex trafficking. So that was like a huge tough conversation that I had to have with him before I gave him this computer, right? Like, and he was so shocked because he couldn't believe that there were people like this. But I had to be real with him, like, this exists, you know? So I don't need you talking to anybody that you don't know and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So after his shock process, because it was a little bit of a shock for him, you know, he was able to understand, and he's very like on top of that, you know.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, that kids know, they have like a way of just knowing. They're very observant too.
Oh yeah.
When Roger and I actually sat him down to tell him that we were separating and divorcing, we were so nervous to talk to him about it. And we're like, oh my God, we're going to ruin our child's, like all of this. His response was literally like, oh, that makes sense. You guys don't even act like a couple. And we just looked at each other and we're like, wow, like that was a lot easier than we were like anticipating for.
Yeah.
You know, so they're observant. They realize, they notice everything.
Yeah, they pick up on, you know, everything, you know. My wife and I, well, my wife has a daughter, so I have a stepdaughter, and she's 11, and she's very, very, very observant. She's super talented, and she loves, you know, a bunch of different things. She's a great tennis player. Her dad is her instructor, her tennis instructor, and we're always talking about how, you know, whenever like any difficulties come up, you know, whether it be like behavior stuff or just like sometimes kids, they, as they get older, they kind of develop, or they start picking up on like little things like from their friends, or, you know, little things here and there where, you know, they'll start like talking back a certain way, or you feel them kind of like different. And we're always talking about those things. And I think that, I always tell her like, you know, she knows,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like she knows, she just knows also that it's not, like certain things are not for kids to speak on, or to speak about, especially at certain ages, you know. Irie she turned 15 this year, and she's always been very advanced. I feel like, in just knowing stuff, like she, you know, she was in a Montessori academy, and she was like homeschooled for a while with a group of like very advanced like kids, and they would learn, you know, a bunch of things, you know, at early ages and things like that. And also the internet, you know, is definitely there. But my daughter didn't have a phone until she was like almost 14. She got her first phones, you know, like 13, 14, you know. And so even though she has that now, she was raised with the right outlook, you know, on certain things, and with enough of an openness, you know, to know what's right, what's not, you know, what's kind of shady. Her mom did a great job, you know, of instilling in her like all the right values and things like that, as a woman, right? And so the role that I play, you know, in raising her is being there for her as a dad, you know, as a friend, as somebody that she can, you know, come to and always experience like fun things. Like we all do fun things together. Like I try to make it an event, you know, whenever we go or do, you know, when either we get together.
An experience.
Yeah. Even if it's, I mean, there's times also where, you know, we bring her over and we just like watch movies and make dinner and things like that. But just letting her know that as a dad, you know, I know that her outlook on men is going to rely a lot on, you know, what I instill in her, like what type of person I am, you know, towards her.
I'm glad you said that, because I do the same thing with my kids, right? Like Zach always tells me like, Mom, I'm so glad that you're my mom. Like, you're so cool. Like, you're such a cool mom. Like, you know, you work so hard. And sometimes I'm like, is he just trying to tell me this shit because he's trying to get something out of me? But I just let it ride, you know? But he tells me like almost every day. So I know that the example that I'm setting for him is like, you know, what a woman is. Like, whenever he seeks that, right? Like, there's going to be like some level that this person's going to have to be, you know, at.
Yeah. It's like a standard that, they, you know, that kids see us, and, you know, they model what the male figure, female figure,
Right.
is
And
based
Roger's a
off of
great
that.
role model too. So I mean, whatever he decides, he wants to date.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's great. I think.
So one of the things I want to say is
Oh.
that the same way that we want what's best for our kids, we also want what's best for each other, right? So like I want Roger to be the best at whatever it is that he wants to do, like the best version of himself. So if there's any way that I could support him in that, like whether it's taking care of the kids, whether he needs me to do something, whether my mom, he needs to help with whatever, like I'll do that, and vice versa. Right. So we don't have like that, oh, like that's my ex, like I'm not going to help them out. Like we help each other out a lot because then our kids see that too. And at the end of the day, if we're doing well ourselves, then like our kids are going to thrive. That's just an additional thing that we do in order for them to thrive as well.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I practice that as well. Like I always talk to my wife about, and we've always exercised this, in our relationship. We've only been married for a year, but we've been together for almost 6 now. And we have that mutual respect for each other and that mutual like underlying friendship that we know that we've talked about it several times, because whenever there's a difficulty or whenever there's something, we always talk about it instead of not talking about it. Right. And so we come always to the conclusion that like, no matter what happens, even though we don't have kids together, we both are parents. And we both have like that priority, like for our kids.
Yeah, you guys are a united family. Like
right.
You guys don't have children together, but you guys have children.
Right. And so even still, no matter what would happen, we would still help each other. We would still support each other. We will still be there for each other, just as human beings, because we're all going through this together, and our paths came together. I think there's a reason, for everything. Every person that comes through your life, it's for a reason, whether it's to teach you something or whether it's for you to see something about yourself. We're very much like mirrors of one another. And so her and I have been able to like recognize that and say, yeah, like I see you, and I see what you do and I see how you do things. And we just make sure that we always say that we're there for each other, even the times in the past, like where we've been apart, there's always that connection where we can fall back on that. And I think that relating to each other in the fact that we have kids, that we're parents, I think that does a lot for that as well, because we, it's not easy, and when you can find somebody, that will be a good parent no matter what, and they'll treat you well whether you're together or not, like to me that's priceless. That's like, I
think one of the most important decisions that you will ever make is who you decide to have children with.
Oh yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
because
it can either make or break you.
Yeah.
It could be miserable.
And you've seen it. Like you've seen it. First time you've seen it with people that and in the family, and it's just not the way that we want to live our life, like with drama and toxicity, and it's just unnecessary. It takes such a toll on you, and it takes so much energy to just be that way that it's just not for us.
Debilitating. Like,
it is.
It's and draining. Like I relate to what Roger said a lot about, having seen certain things, and you too, like, seeing things growing up that you knew you didn't want to be that way, like that's so important. Like I have an experience that shaped me for the rest of my life is when my mom took me to see her uncle who was dying of throat cancer. And I was brought into the room to like say hi to him or whatever. And he had a hole right here in his throat. And that's how he breathed. Like, because his condition was so bad, and Buddy was still smoking a cigarette.
That's crazy.
That day. And I had to see him and hear his voice. My mom told me this later. The reason why she took me to see him is because she didn't want me to smoke cigarettes ever in my life. And she took me to go see her uncle, and he told me, no fume cigarrillo.
Bingo.
Thing like that. And that was
Say less.
stamped into my fucking brain for life.
Hey, you got the job done though.
And they got the job done. But that's how impactful, something like that can be.
Right.
And so I always had that memory, of my mom like doing that. And yeah, it's super, what our actions are and what our, when we can see something in our past and we can transmute that energy and we can change that energy from negative to positive through our kids, I think that's amazing. That's one of the best like superpowers, that exists is being able to do that, as being able to say, okay, I have a kid now, so I'm gonna relive this trauma, but I'm gonna kind of break the curse of whatever happened there with in the act of like teaching my kid like something about life. I feel like the way the world is right now, like we need so much more of that, for things
Definitely.
to kind of balance out. Because if you think about it, the generation right now that's like running shit here in our wonderful country have so much of that trauma, you know what I mean? And so much of that, not even necessarily only trauma, but like that like way of thinking of like of like a past generation that no longer
Not really in touch.
It's not in touch, and yeah, there are representatives, in Congress and the Senate that are younger, and they advocate for our closer, 30s and 40s generation, right? But I think there needs to be way more of that, and so, if people our age that have kids that are listening to this, that, that are hearing this, if they can understand how important it is, to focus not only on themselves, but if they have kids, like focus on your kids, talk to your kids, you know what I mean? Like be open with them, be honest with them, because in that honesty, they're going to just shoot you back with double the honesty, and you're going to see things in a different way. I remember when my kid was 5, I was asking my dad like these existential questions that like I would never thought of 5, like it blew my mind. She was like asking my dad, so if God made us, then like who made God?
It's a great question.
And I was just like, my dad was the one, because my dad was like, when I came back to the car, I was upstairs like getting something, and when I came to the car, my dad's whole face was changed. Like he was like,
"Who the fuck did you just leave me with?"
Yeah, exactly. He was just like, you know what? She just asked me, and I was like, and then he told me, and I was like, blown away. But they're so in tune, and they have so much to teach us, about ourselves and about life. Period. Because, not only do we get to relive our childhoods through them, but they're bringing a whole other download.
Yeah,
Man.
they teach us a lot.
Growing up, my whole experience was just watching my parents argue as if I wasn't even in the room. And that definitely was one, very, very impactful. And, even as a kid, I recognized that this is not the way a relationship is supposed to be. So I told myself, from a very early age that, and I think it kind of hindered me as well, because I can, on occasions, I can be very just lackadaisical just to avoid an argument. But I'll do anything to avoid an argument, and it always stems back to my childhood of watching my parents argue and seeing that the energy, and especially the way they argue as if you're not even in the room, is one of those things that just it
makes you feel like not
I can't pass that down to my kids. I can't. My kids will never have they ever seen me or Romy argue, even in our worst days. Like I just won't happen. Yeah. So,
everything was in private always, like any discussions or anything. It was just like,
because that was a huge, because all that stuff when growing up, and it still affects my relationship with my parents to this day. So I just, that's definitely a trauma I could not continue to pass on to my kids. So like I said, sometimes I'll avoid an argument just because I can't deal with that energy. And it definitely stems from when I was a kid. So, I refuse to continue to pass that along.
Yeah. And even though we wouldn't argue in front of them, like Zach will know if we were going through a disagreement, because we also didn't want it to make it seem like people never argue, because that's not realistic either.
I
like
was thinking that,
you need to have
There's a balance that
there needs to be a balance, but that
a healthy
toxicity,
communication,
right? That toxicity and calling each other names and disrespecting each other and all of that, like, no, like we've never done that. We will never do that, like ever, ever, ever.
Yeah, because like there's always extremes, right? And there's like the negative and the positive extremes, but there's also a middle ground. And in that case, right, the middle ground would be, one extreme would be like very violent arguing, and name calling, and then the other spectrum is avoiding it, or or not communicating it at all. So I think that's a chance where we can show them like a healthy way to communicate and like to solve conflicts, peacefully and calmly. I think that that's an amazing thing that society needs, like as a whole. You know what I mean?
That nobody wants to talk anymore. Nobody really wants to communicate when, like just avoid everything. Like Roger was saying, like he'll do anything to avoid an argument, right? Like, but now we just talk everything out. Like if something's bothering us or anything, like we just talk it out. And Zach sees that. And as Ian grows, he will see it too, right? Like we can expect everybody to have the relationship that Roger and I have. Like it's a unicorn type of relationship because it's like our standard is very, very high. And I know that there's people that try to like, I want what Romy and Roger want, but in reality, it takes a lot of work, but we have like a friendship that is like no other, right? And we're like really comfortable around each other. And one of the most important reasons that we are able to be this way is because he has no interest in being with me. I have no interest of being with him, right? Because if there was still like that whole, like maybe I still wanted him or he still wanted me, like this wouldn't be able to be a thing. Yeah. Right? That would be impossible. And we get along to the point that our kids see us and like we go on vacations together, like, and my family is his family and his family is my family. And it's just, I'm really grateful for the relationship that Roger and I have. And not everybody could have this type of relationship with their ex, right? But, some of the things that we are sharing is some things that anybody could do.
Right.
Made a very big point as far as, we're not interested in any, or we love each other. We're not in love with each other, clearly. So that definitely helps with what we're going on as well. But, a lot of people, I think, when they hear about two people getting divorced, there's always one or there's something still there lingering that they're trying to, spark that back up or whatnot. Right. And the fact that we both acknowledge that, that chapter is over, it definitely allows us to be, like she said, comfortable around each other, go on vacations, because at the end of the day, I was with her when she was giving birth to these kids. Like I've experienced so many things that just because our relationship or our love relationship did not work out doesn't mean that those memories are gone, so you can't just forget about all that stuff.
That's great.
And we're family. Like at the end of the day, we're family. For the last 2 years, what's actually really crazy? Today is 1 year since we got divorced. Officially. Wow. And it wasn't intentional that I'm like, oh, let's record today. I just realized it like a couple of days ago. But like for the last, 2 years, like I've been praying and hoping that like, Roger finds somebody that is good and, is accepting and we could have like a relationship like her and I, right? And she will love my kids the way. And, Roger recently started seeing somebody and we went, the first time I met her, we literally went on vacation for Zach's birthday. Cool. And she's so cool and she's so amazing. And they were all in the water in the beach. And I was alone at the tent and I literally started crying of gratitude because I was so fucking happy that what I've prayed for is here. Right.
And I think that helped. I don't mean to cut you off, but I think that what helped out as well is she had a similar situation where her parents got divorced. Her dad's new wife and her mom are like very good and open relationship as well. So
the perfect person, like I was Roger. I'm like, you great job, Roger. You could not have done a better job.
That's awesome.
So
that's great. I had a great experience with my daughter's mom when she got married. She has 2 other kids. Something that really impacted me, right? When I would go pick up my daughter, he was very, very, very welcoming to me and very awesome towards me. You know what I mean? Like I
like how men should be.
Exactly.
Right.
That's exactly it.
Just very respectful, to the top. I could tell he was a good human being, and it really helped me. And this is, I'm talking about even when I was at odds to the max with my daughter's mom, he was still cool. You know
It's
what I
funny
mean?
you mentioned that because I was with my sports medicine doctor this morning and we were having this conversation and he said the exact same thing, that he was in the past dating somebody that had 3 kids, and she might have had whatever relationship with her ex, but her ex and him, like, it was just like that, like respect, and and that's amazing, because if you're bringing somebody into my kid's life, like, I want to make sure that that person is a good person.
Yeah,
right.
That's everybody's fear when they're getting divorced. That's the first thing you think of is who's this man? That's my first. Oh, all right. A reason why I was fighting so hard to avoid the divorce, even though in the back of your mind you knew that this is not going to work, is bringing in another man. Yeah, especially for me. I just, again, having experiences with my older brothers and seeing how some of their relationship didn't work out, seeing, or hearing, about other men being around the kids and, what that could look like potentially, like,
yeah, especially
very scary.
me, with a daughter. For me, it was something that like I worried about it early on before she, because I think there was certain other relationships or connections before him, but that was something that was always in my mind, was like, who is my daughter going to be around?
It's a scary thing.
But early on, as soon as he came into the picture, it was just it was a very positive experience, that I had with that.
That's awesome.
So I'm super, grateful for that. And also because of that situation, my daughter got a little sister and a little brother,
That's amazing.
and that helped her, tremendously, to develop, into the person, that she's becoming. So, I'm super grateful for that. And I think that's just all these super, like, emotionally mature, like, situations that we're talking about. I feel that outside of the topic of, like, co-parenting, I think that's, like, the umbrella kind of, like, topic here is healthy communication and, like, emotional maturity when it comes to your relationships, because that's something like you said, what you guys have is very rare, but it should be more like that. So we have a couple questions sent in to Romy from listeners. The first question is, what's the one area you don't see eye to eye on?
Well, luckily for us, we pretty much see eye to eye on pretty much everything. Obviously we're still, only 2 years into it, and the boys are going to be going to college one day, going to be dating, going to be going, their different routes, and I'm sure something will come up, but I'm not worried about it. I mean, the way we work right now and our communication, I just can't foresee us really having a huge disagreement on anything, to be honest with you. But 2 years in, so far, no issues.
Yeah,
so
we don't really disagree on much. Yeah, we don't disagree on much.
Next question says, what time/split arrangement have you seen work for you and the kids the best?
Well, when we first got separated, we try to keep everything as 50-50 as much as possible. So we were doing 1 week on, 1 week off, a whole week. And recently, in the last couple of months, our 4-year-old, like, he's really attached to Roger. Like, that's his favorite parent.
Yeah, it's not, I want to call it favorite. He's used to me.
Yeah, he loves you. Yeah, he loves you more, but it's okay. It's okay. No hard feelings. But I felt like he needed to see Roger a little bit more during the week, like have that extra day. So we still do the 1 week on, 1 week off, but one day of the week, like, even if it's Roger's week, I'll take him for a day. And then on my week, Roger will take him for a day. And that improved his behavior so much, just that little switch.
Nice. Next question says, is it cheaper staying together or getting divorced? LOL, real question.
The real answer, together, for sure. Definitely cheaper.
Yeah, it's definitely cheaper to stay together. Obviously, 2-income household, split everything, and it's just a lot easier. But I mean, do you want cheaper? Or do you want a better life? Exactly. I mean, I don't know.
We could have been roommates forever.
Yeah, really. Like, we could have been roommates forever.
Roommates forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was with somebody that wasn't anybody I had kids with, but I went through that breakup was kind of like, okay, who's gonna stay with the place? Like this awesome apartment. She ended up staying with it, but it's okay.
No, we sold the house. We split everything 50-50. It's just,
Yeah, it wasn't from one day to we're getting a divorce and one of us is leaving the next day. It was a gradual plan, and
yeah, whatever was best for both of us. No one's going to leave anybody in the fucking slums.
Awesome. Okay, and the last question is, do you ever get frustrated when you see the other enjoying life a little too much?
Definitely not on my end. No, I don't have time for any of that negativity. There'd be 0 point in that. There'd be nothing beneficial. I mean, at the end of the day, I'd like to see every human being, happy. Winning. So, especially if the mother of my kids, somebody I spent, 10 plus years with, had amazing experiences with. Her family is just like my family, vice versa. I mean, you don't just forget about stuff like that. So whenever she's happy, that means my kids are happy. That means, everybody's going to get nothing but positivity. So, no.
Yeah, pretty much for me, what Roger said. Yeah. And honestly, I just want him to be happy and for him to do great. And for him, like I said earlier on in the episode, like if he's doing well, like my kids are going to do well.
Right.
Right. So no, I never get bothered like, oh, he's off doing whatever again. Like, what the fuck? At the end of the day, that's none of my business either.
That's a great outlook. I can relate with that as well. There was times in the beginning for me when it was difficult with my daughter's mom, but throughout the years when things got better, we even got to the point where like I was actually helping her like in her endeavors. Like if she had something that she needed that I could help her with, I do websites and I do design. So I would help her with her logo, I would help her with her website, or kind of just like bounce back feedback and give her feedback, because I know that if she's doing okay, that means my kid's doing
exactly.
Okay,
Yeah. You always want to keep them in that healthy space as well. So
yeah. Awesome. So yeah, that was the questions from online.
Yeah, thank you guys that asked them.
The only thing I want to add, and just the thing that we just keep harping on, is just, as long as you put your kids first and their interest, at first, I think whatever decision you decide to make, whether it's going to be right or wrong, if you have that as the premise, then, you can always, look for, a positive outcome. Even if it's, it seems negative initially, the positivity will end up shining its light at the end of the day. So that's how I always look at it. Any decision we're going to do, it's always what's in the best interest of the kids, and we'll go from there. I just want to, make sure that I make that point clear. As long as the kids, you put the kids first, all the decisions will be, easy. And so,
yeah.
And if you're having a hard time, like yourself, like accepting, a breakup or a divorce or something like that, like take this time to really work on yourself and take this time to really see, like, what was your role in the process? Like, where can you do better? Right. So you don't repeat those patterns. But, I know sometimes it's difficult because you could do as much work as you can, but you can't change other people. Like the person you're with is very difficult. Yeah. In that case, the best thing that you could do is just work on yourself. And, sometimes you have to get, legalities involved if you have to, but trying to keep that peace within yourself and working on yourself is like, no matter what somebody else does, like they can't disrupt your peace. Like, yeah, you might get pissed off for a couple minutes, but it's not going to escalate to a point where you're just going to just completely ruin your fucking week.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to mention also as well, like, there's going to be a lot of people listening to this that you're not in our similar situation, right? Where our divorce, it wasn't like a key thing that just happened overnight. Like I didn't walk in on her, cheating on me or vice versa, or just something like very traumatic from one day to the other. It was something that, was, slowly, gradually happening, and we both recognized it. And, at the end of the day, we just both wanted to see each other happy. It was tough in the beginning, but like everything else, time heals all. And, as we gradually started, time away from each other in a space, we realized that, especially for me, like it definitely was, the decision that needed to be made. And it was, the right decision for sure.
Yeah, that's great. I think overall, people should take away from this that, like Romy said, a lot of the things that happen to us in our lives is we have to take accountability, like for ourselves, and look at ourselves. It's a tricky thing sometimes because it might sound to some people like, oh well, do I focus on myself or do I focus not on myself? Do I have an ego if I'm caring for myself,
We all have egos.
right?
You can't get rid of it.
Right. So it's like, but am I slipping into, do I be about if
You mean
speaking
like
to
being selfish?
people that, yeah, especially
Mhm.
people that have kids, when it having kids becomes a part of life where you're like, it's not only about you now.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because for many, many years, Roger could, attest to this. I never put myself first. I put him and my kid first because it's like that's what a wife does, right? With the cooking and the cleaning and the being there, whatever, whatever. And that only drove me into like madness, like insanity, like crazy. And it wasn't until I learned that I had to be selfish and put myself first that I was able to be a better wife and I was able to be a better mom. So if you're ever feeling like, taking care of yourself is selfish, like you should be selfish and obviously not hurting anyone else to the point that you're like
Right.
not taking responsibility and doing what you're responsible for, but you have to take care of yourself in order for you to take care of your kids, your spouse.
Right. And that comes kind of like as a word to younger people that might not be, they might be considering having kids or being at an age where, they want kids or they want a marriage or they want a relationship. It's not a fairy tale, guys. Like, having a kid is not, I say this, I guess mainly for women, because a lot of women, they fantasize about having the perfect little baby and the perfect little marriage. Like, it's a lot of work.
So much work.
And if you're
It's
not
the hardest job I've ever done.
if you're not in a place in your life where you want to be, where you have realized like certain things, then you should maybe look into that first, because it is like having a kid will grow you up.
Yeah, quick.
Like super, super quick. And on the same token, for me, I feel that having a kid also opened up a whole nother world of inspiration for me and of purpose, like for me, in what I do, because now, I have a legacy to leave behind, and I have hopefully, I hope to maybe have more kids, someday,
Roger and I are like, yeah.
Every time I see a kid, I'm like,
Nope.
good luck.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Not for us.
But even just having one, and for me, it's it's more than fulfilling, to know that I have somebody that my lineage will keep on through.
Your name will
my
keep
name
going.
will,
Yes.
yeah.
right.
So yeah.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much, Roger, for joining me and agreeing to do this.
Very
and Camilo for navigating this episode because it's a very important topic.
My pleasure.
And then remember, guys, it's not all love and light.